Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Mind Shift. This is a podcast where we discuss how to live a life without limits. My name's Sridhar. I'm a mindset and strategy specialist. And my very special guest today, if you're in Australia, you'll most likely recognize my guest today. She'll have been all over your TV as a reporter, as an anchor, and now internationally as well. If you are into Netflix, she's done shows like Extreme Engagement and PJ. I could go on and on. There'll be so many to list, but you may very well recognize my guest today. It's the amazing PJ Madam. So PJ, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me on, Sridhar. That was a very lovely, humbling introduction. We need to do more work together because I was like not shaking my head going, no, there's too much.
Well, I think that's
humbling.
One of the great things about you is because you get on and do things and it's not about the accolades and about who you are, yet you've just gone on and done so many different things. I didn't even cover all of it. If we're being honest, I didn't even cover the writing part, the producing part, the co-directing part. So you've done some incredible things. But I love that you feel that way because it just shows who you really are. And this work is all about authenticity, not showing everybody who we are, but it's also about living a really great life. And I know that's what can't wait to get into it with you because of the things that you've achieved and just who you are and what you've done with your life. So, well, on that, I'll just throw you in the deep end here. I was just thinking about it. We just had a chat before, and I was thinking, how long have PJ and I known each other and began these conversations? I think it's
more than 10 years. Yeah.
11 years, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I think our relationship spans at least almost 12, I think, maybe possibly 13, but yes.
I think you're right. Somewhere in that vicinity. It's been a while. I work with you and your partner as well, and we've just had some amazing conversations. You've done incredible things. So to throw in the deep end a little bit, this podcast is really about sharing with people. The listeners of this podcast are going to be people that go, I want to live a life without limits. What can I do? And considering that's basically everything we speak about, what's an insight that you can share from your work or your experience that you would want to share with the listeners or watchers of the podcast about how they could do that?
Like nothing we discussed before, Sridhar. So thank you so much for starting with the most difficult question first. I'm getting a taste of my own medicine here. That's such a broad and big question because I feel like it encapsulates probably the purpose driving your podcast, right? Like for me, it's an endless work in progress to have limitless thoughts, right? Like it's all like every day I wake up and it's a battle against the mind, and not so much a battle. It could be an acceptance, it could be a surrender, but just being, I think, being still with what the thoughts are that are running through my head. Like I can have 1,000,001 thoughts running through my head a day. Which ones I choose to believe will determine what kind of a day I have. And that practice is daily. And I don't think I will ever get rid of that practice until the day I die. And we're not taught that in schools. I certainly wasn't taught that in my family. I had a wonderful upbringing. And despite my parents being pretty spiritual and even a little religious, I've never been taught that until the work that we've done. And it was actually you that, and I've got to thank you for credit, I've got to credit where credit's due. I've got to thank you for opening my eyes to that because I think we can miss it. Like we can also do a lot of self-help, and we live in a world now where we really want to get better in ourselves and in the ways that we think, and we're articulating so many more emotional issues way more accurately than what we would have maybe when I was a teenager or even in my mum's era or my dad's era or whatever. But I think that work, when you get really laser focused to it, it never ends. So I think that's probably the best way I can describe my my mindset journey, really.
Well, when I was preparing for this, I thought, be prepared for PJ to come out with a bang because that's how PJ is, and you've been true to that. 'Cause, I mean, straight from the start, like that, you've said a lot in that first just opening, few sentences. There was so much in it, like because we have challenges in life, and part of the work is that those challenges open us up to a possibility of something. And oftentimes when people come to the work, to do the work, they've got something going on. You and Tim had a few challenges going on, and that's your partner, and we started to work through those. But then that's the thing that opens the door to, hey, what haven't I not? What have I not been asking? And I just love what you said about. I have so many thoughts in a day, and I can now choose which ones I believe, or the ones I choose to believe. Because if I'm out there and I've never done any of this work, I'm going, what does that mean? Like, aren't all my thoughts
Well,
really true? And,
yeah, I think one of the things that you said to me a long time ago, and it really stuck with me, you said two of the most dangerous words in the history of our language is to me. And so if you say, like, let's just say you're having a conversation with someone and you're talking about a marriage breakdown or a relationship conflict or something at work that's happening that you're feeling disgruntled about, and if you say, oh, they did that to me, suddenly you're put in this position of both victim, potentially martyr. I know you and I just went through that really recently, but you're also projecting. And I feel like I've just mentioned before that we live in a world where we're so much more like highly acutely aware of how to articulate what people are doing to us.
Yeah.
And it's both, in one respect, I think, well, that's really amazing that we're grasping onto a language that we can all kind of jump on board with. At the same time, I think, wow, what a slippery slope in doing it. We're not really doing it justice when I think we're still trapping ourselves into a way of thinking and a way of believing that really doesn't set us free at all. So when I'm talking about those thoughts, like going back to what you just said, I think when we believe the wrong thoughts, we can just get totally stuck. Or as my 5-year-old son says, we get caught in a sticky web. And I think that, for me, what I had found from previously doing any work with you, and I mean, I've done a lot of traditional counselling in the past as well. I've always been into self-development to a point. I've had, massive kind of life shifts in my time, and I've always sought help. Like, you hurt your back, you go and see someone. You feel sick, you go to the doctor. I've always been very happy to outsource this part of my life as well and learn from it. But I really do think that from the work that we've done together, the sense of self-responsibility in terms of our own thoughts has been the game changer. That to me would probably summarise the shift that I've had in doing this work. It's kind of like saying, look, I can have any problem in the world. I'll take one with Tim, for example. If I had to substitute Tim with anyone else, would I probably still feel this way? Yes. Interesting. That's really interesting. So maybe I should start with me and not projecting onto him and being about him to me, him doing something to me. I'm just using that as an example, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, so can you give us an example? Because this is really profound what you've started with. So what I'm hearing you say is if your partner wasn't Tim, but just happened to be somebody else, you wouldn't feel any different. So it's not what that person is doing. It's that whatever's being done, you're something is happening within you that you're reacting similarly, whoever it is. So therefore, it must be you.
100%. I'm in a situation at the moment where I have very strong feelings towards someone at the moment in my life where that to me is that they are representing for me. And I hope you don't mind. Do we go into some examples? You happy to go like some real life examples?
I'd love to go into real examples.
Okay,
I think
cool.
that'd be amazing for everyone.
Yeah, so, I've got this issue at the moment. It's not a personal issue, it's more of a professional issue. And someone that I'm locking a lot of heads with is representing for me someone perhaps in my past, I guess. I haven't kind of done inquiry on it, and it'd be great for us to do this at some point. But what that person is representing to me, how it's manifesting in my mind, is a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I am weirdly both aggressor and victim. I'm oscillating. I'm trying to find my place in this scenario. And look, it probably predates to perhaps this wouldn't have been the first time. If I had to really look back, this has probably happened in my life again and again and again. And this person is representing someone probably from my 5-year-old or 4-year-old self, or God knows when the first iteration would have happened. Yeah. And at the moment, it's causing me a huge amount of angst and stress and all the rest of it. Now, look, I've got a choice. I know this because we go through this, and you sometimes have to beat me around the head to stop going on the story.
Not literally.
No. But there's safety in the story. If I talk away with my my colleagues or with my friends, they sympathise, they empathise. We have a good old bitch session about it. I feel momentarily good, and then bang, the anxiety's back. Bang, the stress is back. Bang, nothing gets solved. Yeah. I find that when I do the work, and it's like taking medicine, you don't always want to do it. Sometimes it's a bit interesting and it's a bit curious, but on the other side, that has been the most amount of long-lasting impact that I've had compared to any other type of work that I've done. And it starts with me, like it starts, unfortunately, with with really having a deep dive into why I'm thinking the way I am, which of course is in turn creating a whole heap of emotions and emotional reactions. And how I prosecute those thoughts to see if they're really true. And look, I think it's that for me, like, I don't always get it right. I resist. I don't want to let go. I get stuck on the narrative. I think it's serving me. We have this back and forth. Until then I kind of can't handle it anymore. I've reached my limit. It's clearly not serving me, or it's affecting my relationship, or I'm taking it home, and the kids are obviously being affected by it, and then I have to kind of come to Jesus, have that come to Jesus moment, and then things get better. And sometimes I have to do it again and again and again. I definitely don't always get it right. So yeah, I find
we get a lot out of the stories, don't we? So if you don't mind, can we
think
break
we
this down
do.
a little bit so for all the viewers and listeners, can we, if you don't mind, if we can break this down a little bit, just to help people to understand the construct, because you're saying something extremely important here. I love the way you've just kind of said, even I know this stuff, but sometimes I don't want to look at it. Like I want to keep my story, but then at some point you go, my story, what I'm projecting onto this situation or this person isn't serving me. And I mean, to be fair, you said something about you don't always want to get there, but my experience of you is once you do decide it, you're 100% ready to shift it, and you 100% do shift it into something extraordinary, this new understanding and the kind of turnaround shift that we do.
That's because I'm at my limit, Shrita. I'm at my limit. I
Fair
can't
enough.
go on.
That's the way that it works. We all have to get to the limit because, as you say, looking within. I've often said this, and I'll say it again. I've said it on this podcast, on occasions, because, there's so many things out there that propose to be easy. You can easily do this and easily do that. I've not found that. I found if something's not... The hardest thing that we may ever do in our life is look within. Yet it's the most freeing thing that we can ever do. And it appears to be hard, but I've also found that it was so much more difficult carrying all the weight of the stories that I had
100%.
rather than just to look within myself and say, how am I creating them? So in the end, it's not hard, but it does take a tremendous amount of courage to do what you said and take self-responsibility. But if we can just unpack that a bit, so that everyone can follow if they're new to the whole conversation. So you had this person that was behaving in a certain way. And you, as a result of that, I'm guessing felt frustrated, angry, something like that?
Yeah. Insert negative emotion here. Mainly stressed and anxious, and, I think catastrophizing in my head about what the next step is going to be. And I mean, that alone causes stress because it's all speculative, right? You're projecting just fears and running away with that story.
We get consumed. Yeah. Right, we get consumed with it. Okay, so you're doing that, and if you ask, 999,999 people out of 1 million, they'll say, well, it's that person's fault that's doing that.
100%.
They're doing something wrong, right?
I could spin a great story where it looks exactly like that, and you'd be hard-pressed to doubt that. Maybe not you personally, but other people would be like, yes, this is exactly that's the scenario. Yep, you're in that, and it's not your fault. But
and you're saying that you go and talk to friends about it, and they pat you on the back and say, yes, you're in the you're having
you're in the
hardship
right
now.
they're in the wrong.
You.
Yep.
Now you're saying that person isn't actually causing what you feel. Is that what I'm hearing? So can you say a bit more about that, because that's where the goal.
And I guess the reason I know that is because if you swapped that person out for somebody else, or if I really had to prosecute this feeling, these moments, have I been in them before? And if the answer is yes, I feel like that's a lesson in my past that is still recurring in order for me to address and look at perhaps my old patterns of thinking and my old patterns of believing and clutching onto a particularly old narrative that's popping up. It's like whack-a-mole. I've got to keep just going and going and going and going, because sometimes, that it might be dressed up differently. It might look like it's a different mole or a different scenario, but actually it's probably the same, example, just a different variation of something that I may have experienced when I was a young child. So if I trace that back and do the inquiry, and like, it's hard, you know, you've seen me before. I'm always in tears. It's like the ugly cry going on. I don't want to meditate over this. I don't want to go back into the moment. I don't want to do the work, because the story at the time can be really attractive. You know, there's a bit of a dopamine hit in that, in that you think it is serving you in a way where you feel justified, you feel right, you feel like it's a safe spot when you think you're the victim or even a martyr. Like you think that, oh, okay, well, I'm owed something. And to realise that actually no one knows any. In fact, no one owes you anything except only you to yourself. Then it feels like, wow, I've got to roll up my sleeves and actually do some hard work here, because nothing is changing the way I feel.
Yes.
And when that is the outcome, I can't argue with that. I end up going back and thinking, well, what is left for me to do other than to be on a self-destructive path, playing that victim? And it also affects everyone around me. I feel like I'm a very kind of emotional person sometimes. Like if you live with me, you know when I'm upset. If I'm not upset, you know when I'm happy. So I'm conscious of that. Or if I actually do the work, then I can slowly chip away at that particular narrative, whenever it began and however it began.
So great. Well, let's for the sake of the viewer and the listener, let's again unpack that a bit. Because every time you're saying something, it's another piece of gold for us to unravel. And I mean, people will be able to get so much out of this conversation in terms of what we're doing here. To live a life without any limits, we have to get past these blockages. If the behavior of other people, because they're just going around being them, if the behavior of other people or even things that they say or do to us is going to stop us, have us live in frustration, upset, limitation, there's no way to create a life without limits in that scenario. And I think you've, been around as I've been around. I've found that I can't really change other people. It seems that no matter what I think they should be doing, they just keep right on doing what they're doing because that's who they are. Yeah. And so it becomes extremely important to be able to find a way. I love what you've said, to feel better in yourself, and then you can get on, with your life and go forward. So,
well, it's what you just said, being free. Being free, like that's how you have a limitless life. I think the idea that you can't be controlled by your thoughts, or rather you know how to not be controlled by your thoughts, is a skill set we don't have. Like, I just don't think with all of our advances, when it comes to this area, like what I was saying before, like we really are, to the way that my parents and their my grandparents or their parents would have dealt with issues in the past. I mean, sometimes it was just going to the cabinet to get some whiskey and that was it. Like, I mean, there's a whole generation plus of people who've never been taught how to deal with emotion. So I'm really grateful that today we have our eyes wide open a little bit more. But I also think part of that is the tendency to blame very quickly, to lay blame and to make it like almost outsourcing the responsibility of your emotions to somebody else. I find this all the time.
Wow.
And it's really interesting because the same old rules apply of what you just said. Really, you're only in a relationship with yourself and you can only control what you do and what you think and what you say. There's nothing that you can do that stops that. So as soon as you're asking for something from somebody else, I almost feel like that maybe because we've done so much work and you've kind of, for want of a better word, trained me to think differently. But as soon as I can feel that tension there, like I know I have to do some work on this person because there's tension. There's tension there that I can already feel the entanglement. I've got something going on with this person which has got nothing to do with them. It's got everything to do with me. And that's hard to let go of. I've got to be honest, it's hard. I like being the victim sometimes. I do a very good victim.
I think you said it earlier, like we have a society that really promotes victimhood and we like to do it. You said some amazing things. I'm trying to capture them all to come back to them because you're saying some very important things. One of the ones was about being right, and it's really like if you look at human beings and what I call the ego mind, or we call it the identity mind, which is the mind that you're referring to, the one that gets defensive, or the ones that tries to blame someone. We have a very strong vested interest in being right. And if you look at how much, that's what you were saying, right? That's why we're doing that. We're victimizing ourselves because we want to be right. Like that's the fundamental thing of a human being. Well, I'm right, and you have to, and so we need to be right. We need somebody to be wrong. I've got something to share on that because you're helping to bring it out. Is this. I've had some incredible teachers. I talk about some of them, and I talk about having them all the time. And one of them, she's very switched on, and she just said a very important question that I've never forgot. She said, "Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? You can't do both."
Yeah.
And I thought that really meditate on that. I would recommend everyone, just based on what you're giving us the opportunity to do, to just next time you're in a quabble with your partner, wife, husband, or a colleague, and just go, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And this is what I'm hearing from you, is that yes, it feels justified, and I love what you're just being so honest here, and I appreciate that, right? Because you're expressing the sentiment of so many people. So I want to be right. I want to be the victim in this thing because I get to be right. I get to be holier than you get to be the bad person. I don't have to be that, but it's suffering. At the end of the day, it's just suffering.
Well, that outcome, like I said, is like being happy or coming home and I'm projecting it out on my kids or my life partner. It's like I don't want that life. You can tell it's not. That's when it's not working for you. You can kind of live a lie for so long until then you realise it seeps out. You can't run from yourself. So I just find that there are ways in which this manifests and shows up in parts of your life where actually being stuck in that story doesn't work. I was going to just add to that, Shrita, because we've done this, and I'm happy to reveal this. We've just done this work recently where it's not just victim and martyr, but it's also you can be the aggressor at the same time. Like you can be the bully or the boss, or there are so many times where we've done work where I've had this I'm actually quite shocked when I look back at my actions and my thoughts and see what I'm doing or positioning myself, and it's all through here. It's like nothing, it's nothing that you can see day to day, but I'm always blown over to see myself as being both the victim and yet the aggressor or the bully. I'm always like, how did I just do that? Like I can't even, I'm in the world of television and media. I can't even write a script to reflect a character like that. And yet here I am, I can sometimes be both at the same time. And it's like, wow, this work never ceases to amaze but humble me. It's like, wow, humans are complex. Like, isn't that both beautiful and amazing and totally wretched?
Look, if you think, if the world could get what you just said, we would have such a different world to live in. Because people give me quite a lot of a hard time, and I understand why. When people have been victimized by things, and we'll start having conversations about, hey, you're suffering because of this, and it might have been an event that happened 30 years ago or 25 years ago, but they're still victimized to something that happened. And I understand that something significant happened in their past. Things do happen in life, right? And they will get really, really defensive and cross and aggressive when I'm starting to suggest what you're perceiving and believing is causing your suffering, because whatever it is that you're feeling suffering about possibly happened a long time ago, but you're still carrying the suffering. But then the aggression will come out. So it's actually one and the same. You're saying something very interesting, because when we have victims, we tend to mollycoddle them and overprotect and do that kind of stuff. But in reality, it's one and the same. Victims, they're holding stuff in, so they become aggressors. They become what it is that they feel victimized against in an attempt to try to protect themselves. So,
yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? It's I think when you see that, you can't unsee it. It's like a bit like lifting the lid under a bonnet of a car that's you've been trying to look for the root cause of a problem, and then you see the engine and go, and you can't erase that picture. I think that also goes to the heart of when it's not serving you, because that's not an authentic life. You just can't think that it possibly is. Getting there, I think, to admitting that is half the problem, and then doing the work to dismantle it, it takes time. Like, I'm still on that road,
there's profound shifting, but things do come up. You reminded me of a story. I'm going to share a story about, because it's just such a great example. I had a feeling, I just said, PJ's going to bring up some stuff that's going to give us a real opportunity to talk about some things we haven't talked about yet on the podcast, and you're doing just that. I knew your depth that you were going to bring was going to facilitate that. So I've got a story about someone that I worked with that really illustrates this quite well. She came to do the work because she said, look, my husband and I are breaking up. and we don't really want to get back together. That's not what this is about, because I've worked with a couple, I've worked with you and Tim about, coming together, not apart. They didn't want to do that. They agreed that it was finished, but they had these children that they really wanted to, they just really resented each other. They hated each other, essentially, is what she told me when we started. And she said, we want to get to a place of being amicable and care. We want to be friendly for the sake of our children, whom we both love, and we both agree on that. We want to provide them with a connected, front kind of thing, or being connected. So she said, I want to get past these things that I feel about my husband, and can you help me do that? So I said, great. So we found out, what is the thing about him, like we do? What is it about him that you don't like? And she said, that's easy. She said, he's totally dominating, right? He just dominates me, right? And,
I can
and
so
that's
see
what he
where
does.
this is going.
Right? Yeah. And you know what I'm going to ask her, right? And so I did a bit of introduction, like I always do, to the work. And I said, we all dominate when we feel threatened. So how do you dominate him when it comes time for you to dominate him? And she was angry. I mean, she said, I don't think you've heard me. She pulled out her phone. I'm going to give you all of our friends. 100 friends will tell you who's dominating who. And I said, well, the more that people are justifying, the more that I know they've got something that they're hiding, but they don't even know they're doing it.
No.
And so I thought, well, I said to her, look, maybe I'm not the guy for you, because I think you just want somebody to say that you're right. I've never found reconciliation or mutual happiness when someone's feeling wrong. I said, I'm probably not the guy. She goes, well, I said, you probably need a therapist. She goes, no, I went to a therapist. I did all that. I said, well, you're going to need to look at things differently and you don't need to, but if we're going to, do the work. To her credit, she was really courageous. So I had to help her out a little bit. And she said, well, I'm willing to look, but I just don't see when I dominate him at all. I said, well, when you're in an argument, do you ever just stay silent? And she said, well, yeah. And she was like really pious about it, right? This is where the victims feel really right. Said, yes, I do. Well, I just stay silent. I stay quiet, right? As if that was a great thing. I said, okay. Have you ever just put up your hand to stop him? Have you ever put your hand up in his face? And yes, on occasion I've done that when he deserves it, when it needs to happen. I said, now be truthful here. Have you ever walked away and slammed a door or done something like that? And she said, well, yeah, if I'm being honest, when he's getting too out of line, I'll slam the door, right? I said, now carefully think about this question. When you're doing those things, what message are you trying to send him? And this sweet lady, older, not younger, she's an old lady, and she went, oh, well, I'm telling him that. I said, there's your domination. And then I said to her, she told me about his yelling and stuff like that, which I appreciate was going on. And society would say, well, he's the aggressor, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
I said, well, consider this. This is your loved one. He's obviously out of control. He's obviously in some loss of control in his mind. And he can't control himself, right? And I understand the yelling. I get that part. But consider something. He's still there. What about the person that says nothing, that shuts you down, which is meant to be the good way? What's happening to your loved one? They're just gone. You've got no one. And that's often why the aggressive person will get more aggressive and more aggressive.
Because they're looking for reaction and they're
they
needing
get
something.
Nothing. There's no love, there's no support, there's no anything. It's like, screw you, I'm out. So the quietness isn't the pious thing that we think it is.
No.
It's another strategy to dominate the situation. And so I said that, and she got it. And that's when she said, oh my goodness, I never saw what I was doing. I said, well, you're clever, because she told me, 95% of the friends, unfortunately, I guess when people separate, friends go in different directions. 95% of the friends were going with her. And I said, well, you're clever. You got to dominate him, and you got 95% of the friends. She just had a laugh. And she said, I see the interplay with how we dominated each other. So I wanted to share that story because you're giving a unique opportunity to see what plays out with victims and how it works.
So when you're in front of somebody like that, can you already see the writing on the wall? Because, that obviously you see a lot of people day in, day out. And is that just practice, or are you already predicting where this is going? Or, how are you detecting that that's what she was going to say and you were bang on about how she dominated? in terms of how she was able to dominate. I mean, I know that everyone has those qualities, but how were you? Because you've done that to us before. It was like, damn, it's like, hang on, does he know? Is he in this relationship? Do we have? How does he know? Like, there's been a number of times, but is that just experience and a bit of luck, or no? I don't think it's luck at all.
I think sometimes I have to say this because for some reason it just dawned on me that you guys called me from a satellite phone from the Amazon rainforest during a film shoot one time. Maybe I am part of this relationship. So I was in my car in the hands-free talking with you guys, but no, seriously, it's all patterns, PJ. That's what it's all patterns. Like if there's someone saying there's an aggressor, we all have strategies to try to get what we want. And the ego mind, the identity mind is based in fear. So whenever anybody has a problem of any kind, immediately I know there's a fear underneath it. So I know that because she wasn't happy, she's not like, I'm all inspired about life. She doesn't like her husband or ex-husband or wherever they were in the process.
There's conflict. There's a charge.
There's conflict, and she's got a charge. So I know patterns. There's basic patterns. There's aggressors. There's people that withdraw. There's people that go silent. These are all techniques. And so it doesn't take long. Like next time you speak to someone, and if there's a heightened moment, you'll start to see their techniques of what they do when they feel threatened. So because there was an aggressor in the situation, and I could just tell from her quiet sort of, her demeanor was like this, I could tell that she was one who most likely, I took a stab, but she was one who withdrew. And so that's how I knew, because he was the one doing the yelling. She wasn't doing the yelling because she thought he was dominating, so she must have been the one dominating in a way that was less apparent to her.
Oh, you can definitely still dominate by giving the silent treatment, or I mean, that's why it's
the
called,
highest form.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit like what we were saying in a similar way to being a victim. But actually, we dance around that person because it's the perceived power is all in their hands, and they're actually can be quite aggressive. I mean, I've been that 100%.
And we can go silent. The whole silent treatment. We can go silent.
Yep.
We'll just do whatever we think we need to do to win. To be right. And that one in our society, this is so great. Thank you for bringing this up. That one is so misunderstood because those people are seen as the victim and these people are seen as the aggressors, when really what you've got is two people just employing two different strategies to dominate, or whatever the case might be. One looks better, but one is deemed wrong and one is not deemed wrong, and that creates victimhood, which is completely powerless.
It's not, and being trained in commercial media for as long as what I have been in my background in film and TV, but also as a journalist, we live and run in a society, not just when it comes to storytelling, having a happily ever after ending, which is also false, but you always have a goodie and a baddie. You have to. Like, that's the way that the world has been. It's wrong. It's wrong. We know it to be wrong, but we have had this cycle of that's the way that we kind of tell those stories. I mean, particularly in news and current affairs, where someone is the aggressor and someone is the one who's been hard done by, and you all feel sorry for the victim. Yeah. That's it.
But you'll know when you start digging behind it. There's more to that story, isn't there?
Of course. No, the amount of times where the cameras have stopped rolling, and we may have interviewed somebody who has had this, terrible fortune beset upon and then you turn off the cameras and the stuff that happens, you're like, oh gosh, okay, well, that just flies in the face of what I thought a victim would do. So no, we often run on
someone in your profession and what you've done, to hear that, because that's really gold for everyone, because we don't get to see that
of course,
as a public, we don't get to, and then we watch that and go, there is a baddie and there is a goodie, and that's the way, 100%. And it reinforces this very base level understanding about human beings. And on the flip side, which because I know you've got to many times, you're very humble. I knew that, but I'm really getting it more because you're talking about how much you haven't done, but I also know, because we've known each other a long time, how much you have done and what how you have progressed and what you've done, which is some extraordinary things. So maybe we'll turn the conversation to, I'm getting from you that, okay, sometimes you want to hold on to your story, but, I've known you and your partner for such a long time. You always get to the point where you're like, hey, it's time. And you work it through, and you've created some amazing, I know in your relationship, I'm starting to think, because I've got a good memory for this stuff, so I can see it. Be much better coming from you. What's some of the things that you've achieved from this self-responsibility? I'm getting from you, there's a theme in every every podcast, I'm getting from you self-responsibility. And
100%.
yeah, what have you achieved as you're willing you get to that point?
Well, I think one of the things I've achieved is dropping the story. So, I mean, even I think when we first, when I first came to you, as introduced by Tim, but, I was off the back of a really big relationship breakdown. I was married, I was going through a divorce, and I had an excellent, very tried and true, narrative running through my head, which I would have told you, I would have told my previous counselor, I would have told friends or whoever would have asked, like, close family. And it fit the story that I wanted to believe, and I thought would be packaged very nicely. And yet I was still miserable, like I was still holding on to something. There was anger still there was frustration, there was stress, there was sadness, there a whole heap of things. And I remember our very first session and that turnaround that we did where I was in my old apartment in Bondi, just bawling my eyes out and crying. And I think you asked a question like, what do you want out of this? And I said something like, I just want to be happy or something like that. And we did one of the most almighty turnarounds where I realised that, I was just to blame as well, equally to blame, because I think I was so strong in the story of blaming and that was the narrative. And the most incredible thing happened. I tell people this story and they actually don't believe it, but we hung up, as you know, we communicate over, I think back then it was Skype.
It was Skype in those days, wasn't
That's
it?
back in the days.
What's that?
I know, like, what are you? Oh my God, look how daggy we are. Oh my God. But yeah, it was on Skype and, put down the laptop and my ex actually called within, like maybe 3 minutes of us hanging up the phone. And I remember the words that he said was, hey, is there a way that we can move on and be friends? And for the first time, I've never answered something so true in my life. And I just said, yes. And everything was like, the entanglement was broken. And it was just like, my thoughts did that. Wow. It was almost like I could see it. And I think when you have those really profound moments where it was like the work that I had done had told the universe, go and tell his universe that we're ready to move on, and then it happened. And when that did happen, I was like, wow, this is the only way that I can live my life is to try is to just keep trying. Like, don't always get there, but you can never ever stop working on yourself. Like, yes, it's true, the cliche is true, you're only in a relationship with yourself, you can't run from yourself, all the rest of it, but why would you want to infect everyone else that you deal with, work with, love, with, like, why would you want to infect them with your thoughts when they're faulty? Like, it's the best investment you can make in a relationship or a friendship is to never stop working on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, because, my fundamental question is, why would we want to spend this precious time we have in this one life that we get unhappy and miserable? And you're giving such a great gift here today, PJ, because you're very clearly demonstrating that the only thing that's keeping us from that is the own stories that we're running about situations and the blaming and the, I just love your word. It's just ringing out of my mind the whole time we're talking here is that self-responsibility. It's just so important that, what I'm feeling is coming from within here, not what somebody out there is doing.
I was going to say, and this is probably the reason why, like you were asking, what do I get at? What have I, been able to discover in this work? I think it's also come from the background that I was in. So as a journalist, and like I said, trying to portray a very binary world, it's almost as though, the public can't accept grey. It has to be black and white. Black and white has to be a victim and aggressor. It has to be, right and wrong, good and bad. And I think when you build a career on that, but you deep down know, I mean, you could present a story any which way. You also know that, look, the media is not there out of, to a point, yes, obligation and upholding the ethics of trying to tell the truth. But the truth is also under question, right? So I think deep down, I always knew that something wasn't right. And there was a couple of stories that I had done where I was like, this is not, the baddie's not the baddie. And the victim is actually the person that I'm seeing is the biggest aggressor, and they've attracted this situation to themselves. And I could never say that or report it like that. But something was just uneasy. And then when I pop out on the other end I was having a bit of career change myself, like just moving sideways in the world of television, but then realizing actually I don't want to live my life like that because it's not real. That stuff is not real, and the sooner, maybe it'll all happen with AI, I don't know, but the sooner we get real about what stories are and what the news might be, I think, and maybe it doesn't even need to exist. Like, why do we have to know what's happening every single day in every single country, happening all around the world? Like, that's not the way that our ancestors used to live. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't so connected. Why do we have to be so connected?
Even when they told stories, like if you think about it, it's storytelling in a way. When they told stories, there were some good ones in there, right? Like the stories that we're getting from all those different countries it's bad stuff that's, not bad and good, but it's harmful stuff. It's destructive stuff. It's the killing. It's the, what about the person today that, helped the person across the street? Or what about the person today that, did something extremely, more than that too? But it's like, what about all the great stuff that's happening, which is equally going on in the world, but we don't hear about that, so we then form this version of the world that's like, oh, it's this horrible place. But really, they're just taking snippets, aren't they? Because you take the snippets that are the most sensational and go, but that's what the world is, and you got to be careful. But it's,
and also I think
it's
to wait
not.
And to be awake to the fact that they're there to make money. They're there to tell some news, or the news according to them. But essentially, they want the eyeballs on screen, and that competition and that competitiveness is skewing for you, for the audience, what they think is really happening. And I mean, I'm not trying to say everything's fake news and all the rest of it. I think there is a lot that is, and of course, there's a lot that a lot of institutions that hold themselves up to be completely pious and truthful and ethical and all the rest of it. And sometimes they're the greatest. They're the greatest. To be at fault for some of this, of what I'm saying. They can be like completely biased and shockingly so. So I think like to be aware that the world is grey, and also, I mean, I don't mean to reduce it, but give people a chance. I mean, yes, there could be a baddie and a goodie, but I've also seen a lot of people come together and forgive and to move on and to start off on the wrong foot, but actually to end up as great mates. I mean, there are possibilities and chances which don't get reported on, but we concentrate only on the things that are so binary, and life is just not that. So I think that's the other thing that's probably led me to be really open to this work, is because deep down I knew that things just weren't right in what I was doing. And not to say that I'm not grateful for my old profession. I absolutely loved it, all the rest of it. But the teachings that you introduced allowed me to, A, break that hold on wanting a narrative, but I think B, as well, understand that the projecting and the blaming, it's not serving me. It's, we live in a grey world. Yes, I'm to blame sometimes. Absolutely. All the time or whenever, or projecting like... We need to be really, really honest with ourselves about when we're projecting, because I think it's like a daily exercise for me. I don't realise I'm doing it half the time.
Most of us don't. I mean, my take on a PJ is that there's no one to blame. It's not like, if you stop and think about it, it's not about blame. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. I mean, you're offering something here that is really, really profound. Like we're talking about the binary, the black and the white, right and wrong are two of the most fundamental black and white constructs that we have as human beings. There's right, there's wrong, that's all there is to it. And it's something that I find for many people, it's a very difficult construct to get away from, but it's what you said. It's very base, it's very low energy, it's very, it causes a lot of suffering, and it's very isolating, because we're in a camp where, okay, I'm right over here and you're wrong, yet we're trying to form a great relationship with that person.
Yeah.
You're actually bringing up something really important, because we do it, and you're alluding to it. I might just put a context to it. At the very basis, if we're into right and wrong, and that's where we live, I'm just going to go ahead and let people know that that's a very low way to live your life. It's the lowest, basic.
It's totally basic.
It's what's the word I'm looking for here? Dense. It's a very it is. It's just dense. I don't mean dense like calling names. No. I mean like it's a dense
I know.
energy. It's extremely.
You've said that so well.
Yeah, I was thinking of the word.
You've said that without offending at all.
Well, I'm not trying to. Like, I'm not trying to call someone a name.
No.
It's dense, but as you go up, like, and I know that you've done it, and you and Tim have been working on this, and it's apparent in how you're saying it, just how much self-responsibility you're taking. Up on the other end of the spectrum is understanding.
Yeah.
So basically, when someone does something, I'll give an example. I was in the airport the other day. We'd gone on an overseas trip, and we were coming back in. And I was in this line. We were supposed to go through an express lane or whatever, and this guy just comes up and rams because I didn't have the right thing, but I thought I had the right thing, and I'm talking to the guy, and this guy just comes up and rams my car behind. Says, "Well, you're blocking out the way. Get it right." And he's like really, really angry. He's like frustrated. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And in the past, I know what I would have done. Like I just would have went, you don't have the right to do that. I don't know how I would have said it, but I probably can't say it on the podcast, right?
No.
And
You probably can, actually.
Well,
You would have
can
gone
maybe.
nuts.
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, but I would have just let him have it, and it would have been probably started a fight. I would have done whatever it was, and I just kind of stepped over, and I had that initial thing, but very quickly through the practice of it, I just went, this isn't about me at all. Like I just happen to be here. I can have my day be ruined. I can start an altercation here. I can go to a base, dense place in my mind, or I can just realize this is not about me. It's like what we're circling around from what you said earlier. This isn't about me. What's going on with this guy? Just let him go. Like just let him go. And I don't want that in my scenario. And I was like, if I think about that guy now, I just feel for him. I'm like, what kind of stress was he under to have to behave that way? He's not in a good space in himself, right? It's a fellow human being who's in a really difficult space. If I ever meet him in the future and we speak about it, I'll often say, hey, how's that working for you? It's probably not working very well to feel that way. Let's question whatever's going on. But it's, it just goes to show, like, everybody would have been like, hey,
like 99.9% of the population to hear that would have gone, look what he did to you. Again, to me or to you. Those two words again, where it's like, oh, well, that's the story right there. There's a goodie and a baddie. And the goodie had damage or this or that or whatever, and the baddie lost his cool and lost his shit and all the rest of it. And it's like,
and you should tear him down.
And for you to be empathetic and sympathetic and go, oh, like, I know what it's like to be stressed and busy and how awful. That's something that I think is like, hats off to you, Shrita. You're the master at this stuff. Like it takes me a while to get like that. It takes me in fact, I've got to say, I tell you who is good at it. My partner. My partner's way better at than me when it comes to those kind of things. He always looks at something, and his first. In fact, it aggravates me that his first reaction or the default is actually care because I'm a hothead. I'm like, oh, look at what's just happened, and I like to kind of get on the high horse, and that's where I've got to work back. And then I'm almost like digging him in the back going, why aren't you reacting the same way as me? Shouldn't we be reacting the exact same way? Like, shouldn't we be like unified, like in solidarity with our issues?
Well, we talked about it earlier. I'm really looking forward to having you and Tim on an episode of the podcast because you've done some great things together. But I mean, you're given a lot of credit, but I think it is important to say that, I know this is what's interesting to me. During the course of this podcast, you've said a lot of times what you haven't done and what you don't do and, what I do and what Tim does and all this kind of stuff. But in doing that, it actually goes to show just how much self-responsibility you're actually taking. But I want to say too that I'd hope you give yourself a bit more credit because I know that, you're, there are people that feel emotions to a different degree. And you've said that, you kind of feel emotions and you can get hot or whatever the case might be. But you also then, once you're doing the work, you bring all of that to it. And then when you get your breakthroughs, you fully get the breakthroughs. And, what I'd love to hear a little bit more about is, and I appreciate your self-responsibility, is some of the things you've actually accomplished. Because I know that, I know what you've done in your relationship. I know what you've done in your work life. I know what you've done. If you feel comfortable talking about it, if you don't, I understand.
The emotional accomplishments or just the
just
professional?
in life, like what you've done through self-responsibility. Because I'm thinking of even about what you and Tim did with your children. And I mean, that's a while ago now, but you remember those experiences. I think if I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, I really get PJ is like, she's looking at herself and, she's kind of saying some things about herself, but at the end of the day, she's looking at herself and she's getting past it. And I know you do. I want to know what changes in my life when I start doing that.
I think what's playing out for me right now, because I'm a mum of two boys, is that I'm seeing it play out with my children. So the most interesting lesson that I'm handing down to them is the practice of continually prosecuting my thoughts. So whenever there's a conflict, whenever there's a fight, whenever I'm even angry at them, and if I feel, there's a difference between disciplining to teach and disciplining to get angry because I can't deal with it, or I think we've done a session on this of being overwhelmed or overstimulated, and it's very common in the motherhood space. Like those words are absolutely talked about very regularly as like one of the common kind of, I won't say ailments, but one of the common byproducts of being a modern mum today in 2026, and I think one of the interesting things is to stop myself and, like, I'm completely dysregulated when I'm overwhelmed, completely. So the most hilarious thing is that I'm the one dishing out the disciplinary advice here to my 5-year-old. But actually what we've been trying to do is stop and practice that sort of awareness, because that to me is an achievement. So we sit with my eldest son, Albie, and I'll be absolutely doing this with Augustus as well, and we talk to him about not just what I was thinking, what I was trying to achieve, and then also what we could have done better, but not taking away also from, like, say, he was doing something that was unsafe, or there's obvious lessons there, but if I've executed it in a way which was just well over the top, or if I've just kind of screamed at me, and it has absolutely happened, like, I'll hand on my heart, I'm ashamed to say it, but I can't avoid, like, that's the truth of it.
It happens to everyone. Like, we have moments, right?
God, I've had some absolute, own goals as a parent, and especially just recently in the school holidays. But we try to be very honest and truthful about where our heads are at, because what we are trying to demonstrate is the practice of identifying the faulty thoughts. So the most incredible, and you asked about achievements, and this is, I'm trying to get to it in a weird way. And I just mentioned it before, one of the most incredible and amazing things was my 5-year-old picked up this way of describing this as being stuck in a sticky web. So what it is like, if you are in a web, a spider's web, and you can't get out, you're stuck in a thought, you're stuck in a narrative. And no one wants to be inside of a spider's web, I'm imagining, and so you want to get out. And so how do you do that? Actually, you can't fight the web. It's quite difficult. A couple of times he said, Mummy, you're stuck in the web. Take some deep breaths. And we try to practice this, only because perhaps one of the first steps, and I don't know how he kind of got onto this, so he's only 5, right?
Yeah.
But it's to relax. It's to take some deep breaths and relax, and start to meditate on working this out, or really prosecuting it properly. Now, look, he's 5. I didn't have that language base when I was 5. And so I know it's not a career achievement, and I know it's not like a relationship achievement, but in terms of what makes me go, wow, life is amazing, is when he explains to me, Mummy, take some deep breaths, you're in the sticky web.
I mean, at
and
5
he
years
can
old.
see it.
Yeah. And well, obviously your family is really important to you, and I know we've talked about your career achievements and those types of things, but since you've had children, you're a very dedicated mother. And and to have that, like, a lot of times parents will come and go, my child's doing this and that, and I'm like, are you aware they're a mirror of you?
Yeah, I don't care about, I certainly don't care about academic achievement. I know it's pretty bad, but I'm like, nope, I want them to be good citizens of the world, citizens of the world who grow into great men and are limitless in their thoughts and have a limitless life. And that's not the kind of achievement that I would have thought I would have. Like, yes, I've been a broadcast journalist. Yes, I've been a newsreader. Yes, I've travelled all over the world, being a news and current affairs reporter. Yes, I've worked for the biggest networks in Australia. Yes, I've had wonderful opportunities. I've had my own production company. Still do. My husband and I had the first commission by Netflix in the US back in 2016, before Netflix was kind of what it was today, what it is today, rather. We've had some incredible experiences. We've achieved the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And yet it would have to come down to now these lessons where I probably could have taken them for granted and just cared more about success and what am I going to do next. But actually nothing has given me more joy than seeing my two boys become awake. Like that's just been the most beautiful. And I'm not saying because I didn't have it or anything like that. It's just like having that skill set now and building on that foundation is great. Like my parents, I think, did a wonderful job with us, but they didn't have the tools either. So we're all just developing the tools and we're all trying to sift through, I think, the stuff that's thrown at us. But seeing them do it and those kind of moments are like, wow, that's an achievement for me. That actually is
a major achievement. I mean, and I mean, if you think about, like, I'll see parents and they'll say about kids, oh, my child's doing this. And I'm like, are you aware you're looking in a mirror of that child?
100%.
Like they're just mirroring back you. So you're getting mirrored back. Oh, an awakened child that's going, I'm in a sticky web, or you're in a sticky web, that even understands the concepts. My thoughts are creating suffering for me at 5. I mean, gosh, imagine if we had that at 5 years old. What happens growing up?
He told me off the other day where he said, you and Daddy are working too much and it's making you stressed and unhappy. And I said, yes, it's making me very stressed and unhappy. And he said, well, you should have thought of that before you had children. I was like, do you know what? I can't even argue with that. I just said, fair.
Watch out what you're raising there. He sounds
I
like
know.
a breed. He's 5 going on 100 or going on 90.
We're going to slide into the other territory where it becomes like, where we become the children and he becomes the, like that. It could raise another host of problems. But yeah, no, look, it's a funny thing where you achieve success, particularly in the line of work that Tim and I do. But actually, when it all boils down to it, I mean, like we're terrible on social media. We need to definitely utilize that more. And we're terrible sometimes kind of taking time out for us and telling people what we're doing. But at the same time, I just think, well, only because I will never get this time back with these children at this patch in our lives. Like I often, and you know this, I come back to a couple of core beliefs that everything drills back to. Everything just drills back to me not being seen, not being heard, not being valued, variations of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that would have happened between the ages of 0 to 10. So I'm in that time now with my kids. So, and not that I'm trying to prevent it at all. I actually think some voids are really interesting because they serve the purpose of going through those motions and you have to have that to come out the other end, I think. I don't know, I could be wrong. But what I'm more concentrating on is the tools to deal with it. I don't know, Shrita, what do you think? Like, do you think we do need voids in order to be a better self?
No.
Yeah, see, there you go.
But we're not going to escape them. So,
No.
when you talk about voids, you're saying like, insecurities that we have or things that we lack.
Perceived
It's a
trauma,
common belief.
whatever, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a whole nother way. It's like a big part of the work, as you would know, is we haven't even talked about it today. We might have to do another episode because we've covered half the story today. The other part is all about inspiration. And I guess you have covered that to a degree because I think listening to you and how you've come to be really inspired to be a mother is what's coming out to me today. And I know what, excuse me, just have some more. I know that you had some, there was a time when you thought, was that going to happen for you? And it's really great for me to just catch up on how much that is a priority for you. So that in and of itself is saying something. But look, it's inspiration is what we don't need to be, people say, oh, my challenges make me stronger. And that's true. But challenges they don't have to be looked at as challenges. They can just be looked at what we're dealing with now. It's when we frame it as this challenge or this void and we frame it that way, we think we need that to grow, but it just becomes like a trap that we say if we believe like, okay, my challenge is I'm not good enough and I'm going to drive it, I'm going to strive so I can prove myself.
Yeah.
And then we drive really hard, we get something, but that was never enough. So we go back to the cycle again and life becomes this never ending cycle of that we never get out, where in reality, if you examine it, as you know well, you were never not good enough. That didn't happen in the first place.
Yeah.
So we didn't need that. Like it did create a drive, but if we didn't have that, could we just be inspired to create something? So the answer to that question is no, we don't need them in my experience, but we are going to have them. And if we're going to have them, we might as well utilize them. But I'm not about, there can be challenges created that don't create voids, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think poor old inspiration versus challenges. Inspiration needs a PR overhaul. Like we don't look at it like that. We don't look at the inspiring life to drive. Yeah, I mean it's that whole thing of you need the battle scars and you need the hard times to kind of learn from this. Like I don't know where that began, but it's definitely over inspiration. Like if you kind of think, oh, I'm going to have an inspired life, everyone's like, well, you've had it easy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like it's not. It's when you're inspired, you get lots of challenges. You just tackle them in a way or address them in a way where you're inspired.
Yeah.
I had this guy that's like, I was talking with him. He's very successful, and he said, I've got here through hard work. I've worked hard. I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And he goes, what do you mean? Like that? Isn't that? Aren't you supposed to praise me for that? I said, well, no. If you worked hard.
Yeah.
He goes, well, don't you work hard, Sridhar? I said, well, I work a lot, but I don't work hard. I love what I do. It's not hard. I love it. I can't wait for the next chance to be able to do it. Like to have this conversation with you. It's not hard. It's joyful.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
it's
true.
this concept of work hard. We have to work hard to be successful.
Yeah.
No, you just have to be inspired to be successful, to find what you want to do and what you want to give the world, and then dedicate yourself to it, enjoy it, and you'll be more successful than the person that's struggling and driving for something. But on that note, I want to say something to you because you were saying earlier, it's not a work achievement, it's not this, but I think the greatest achievement of all that I'm hearing from you, at the end of the day, the greatest achievement for me, PJ, always is authenticity. And when I hear what you've done in your life, what I've seen you do, and then to hear the mother that you're dedicated to being, and I know it because I watch you do it, we have conversations about it, that in itself, that's the greatest achievement because that's your authentic self. And to have a change from to be able to change from what you thought it was to just genuinely listening to who you are and what you want to do. And it's really obvious on this call how much you enjoy, how much you're dedicated to that and how much it inspires you to be a parent. I think it's awesome and it's saying a lot in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, like what an opportunity I get to have. And that's what I wanted. I mean, not everyone wants it, and that's totally understandable and fair. It's not easy, but it's an awesome ride that I'm having. So I'm here for it. And I'm really grateful for it too. Like particularly when you don't think you're ever going to have children. So it's like, oh wow, this is, the moment I let go, it all happened. So how cool I get to have that.
I'll leave it to you to end up with like another thing we should spend another hour on. When I let it go, it happened. But look, this has been amazing. I think it probably brings us to a good point. Is there anything before we complete with that you want to say just to people out there before we bring it to a close? Anything if somebody's out there, because I'm thinking that the viewer of this, if I'm watching this podcast and I don't know about it, I want to learn how to live my life without limits. And you've given us so much today. Is there anything in a summary that you would say to people, if you want to break past your limits, you want to live the greatest possibility of your life, what would you say to them?
I would say, watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts. We are what we think we are. And like I said when I started this, you will have, isn't it scientifically proven you have like 10,000 thoughts a day or something like that? I said 1 million or whatever. But which ones are you going to choose to believe today? Because that choice is the moment that you can find real, meaningful, authentic change in your life. And I've not been able to slice or dice this any other way.
Yeah,
it's just starting on that premise. Yeah.
I love that because before I got introduced to, even beginning to question what I was thinking, I just thought what I thought was the truth. And I love hearing that. Choose what you believe today because if you think about it, there's so many contradictory thoughts. Well, which one am I going to believe? Like, you can say, I'm a great person, I'm a horrible person. It's like, it's the same person you're speaking about. Which thought are you going to believe? So that's just absolute gold. Use the word gold a lot because there's nuggets that come out in this, and you've given us a lot to unpack. It's an episode that I hope and think people are going to go back and watch a few times because there's so much in it, to so many deep things that you brought out for us. I keep forgetting because we've worked together for so long. I'm like, hang on, did we just have a normal conversation? Maybe this is like, whoa, what are they talking about? What are all these concepts? This is like a bit too much. We have, to a degree, we have had a normal conversation, and I think that's precisely what I would hope to do on this podcast because it gives people a genuine insight into what the whole thing is like, and what are some of the things that we speak about in here. So it has been that, and I'm super grateful to you for being that way because there's so much in it, because it's just it's true, it's genuine. We're not concocting anything here. This is a genuine conversation about work that we've done and things that you've done in your life, and there's just so much value in what you've done. I get the feeling, PJ, this time that there's about another 3 episodes or 5 to do with you, so we might just have to have a roster because I feel in some senses there's been so much said, and in other ways, it has been a long time, and I think there's so many more things that we could bring up.
Look, Put me on the roster.
I'll put you
Happy
on the
to,
roster.
happy to serve.
Definitely going to get you and Tim on a podcast on one of the
Yeah,
episodes.
would love that.
For you
Would
guys.
love
But for
that.
now, look, I just thank you very much for giving us your time and yourself, your authenticity, and what you brought to this podcast. Again, I'll just say if you're listening or viewing, do it a few times because there are some real, you've said so many things here today that are of immense value to the person who wants to live the greatest possibility of their life. So with that, I just want to say thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Shrita. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks. Bye.